It has now been roughly a year since Black Ops 6 Zombies debuted with Terminus and Liberty Falls respectively. Treyarch took on the impossible challenge of creating an experience that catered both to new players of the more modern mechanics of zombies, while simultaneously steering the mode back to its roots to appease more hardcore and OG players such as myself. And while BO6 was an earnest attempt, sadly throughout the course of its season, it couldn't shake the confines of its more lackluster predecessor. What with alienating mechanics, lackluster difficulty, next to zero replayability, and a creatively bankrupt story that started out promising but just fizzled out near the end. So now here we are in 2025, the next Black Ops installment right around the corner. I'm gonna be honest, I have not been hyped for BO7 Zombies, not in the slightest. Most of that can be attributed to the failings of the season we just had, and how modern zombies continues to fail providing something of meaningful substance. With BO7 in many respects being a part 2 of Black Ops 6, I thought that would apply to the zombies portion of the game, and we would see a lot of the same systems with next to little innovation, nor content to warrant a $70 purchase. However, on the day of recording, we just got the worldwide gameplay reveal of Black Ops 7 Zombies, along with a ton of additional info in relation to the game's core mechanics. And guys, I have to bite the bullet, I could not have been more wrong. Now granted, we have to wait until the game releases before passing off any proper judgment. But all the news we've received has been nothing but positive and has me confident that BO7 Zombies could be the quintessential zombies experience that we haven't seen since the likes of Black Ops 3, and can provide a fun experience that can satisfy players of all types. Before we get into it, just two things. One, this is not going to be a super detailed, comprehensive breakdown of every single mechanic in detail about Ashes of the Damned. There are so many other channels who could do a way better job of that than I can. Instead, this video will just be a very personalized opinion of the direction BO7 Zombies is headed in. Lastly, if you end up enjoying the video, please leave a like, it helps out a lot, and subscribe for more videos like this and BO7 coverage. With that said, we can begin. So just like how Black Ops 6 was a spiritual successor to Cold War, Black Ops 7 would be a spiritual successor to Black Ops 6, in the respect that it will be keeping a lot of the core systems in that game, while simultaneously expanding on them and just polishing the game more and adding to the overall package. So one of the many positive changes that has been confirmed is the reduction of special enemy spam. One of the biggest problems that plagued BO6 was just how many special enemies were on screen at once and how much projectile spam there was in one match. This is of course referring to the constant barrage of manglers, doppelgast, what have you, that was in the various BO6 maps. Thankfully, we're going back to the roots of just prioritizing one big special enemy, aka an elite, and ramping up their threat level and presence, while also keeping the main focus on the zombies. Thank God. This is a fantastic change and fixes one of the biggest issues of BO6 high rounds. Another positive change are the more demanding salvage requirements. Basically meaning it will be harder to collect and purchase things with salvage. Now you may be asking, how is that a positive change? Wouldn't that kill the pacing of progression? Well, yes and no. You see, what this is doing is making it harder to stick to one loadout. Of course, as was introduced in Cold War, you can spawn in with any weapon of your choice, and you can upgrade it, pack it, and keep it for the entire match. This has been one of the biggest problems with replayability. You already know what your loadout is going to look like when you start up every match. Well, now, it's going to be harder to run one weapon every game, and what that does is it incentivizes the mystery box, giving the mystery box additional functionality and a reason to, well, exist, and bringing back some of that RNG charm from earlier titles. In theory, this will help shake up the gameplay formula dramatically, and it's also the best of both worlds because if someone really wants to run a weapon a part of their preset loadout, they still have that option, but it's just much harder, adding some refreshing risk and reward. A third change bringing the mode back to its roots is regarding the Wonder Fizz. Instead of spawning in at a pre-selected round, the Wonder Fizz machine can now only spawn in if every player in the game has 3 perks or more. So instead of just buying them all at once at a later round, you actually have to memorize the location of these machines and choose wisely which ones you want to prioritize, which brings back independent perk selection, giving them more identity and agency within the mode. So all the changes I've just listed has one theme, and that's essentially steering the mode back to its more classic roots, However, what I love about it is that it doesn't outright erase a lot of the new innovations and mechanics that Cold War and BO6 introduced, but rather it fine-tunes them to bring back so much of what made earlier Zombies so special. However, if that's not enough for classic players, there is still one more ace Treyarch has up their sleeve, and that is Cursed Mode. This is by far the biggest new thing that I'm excited for. Cursed Mode is essentially classic mode, restricting the player to a starting pistol, a 4 perk limit, a classic point system inspired from BO3, and no armor. This is pretty genius. This way, Treyarch are able to have their cake and eat it too. They can still create a more streamlined experience that caters to new players primarily coming off of Warzone, but there's also an alternate playstyle that mimics what so many of us loved about original Zombies and plays more like those earlier games. However, there is a small catch. From what we've gathered, Cursed Mode will not be unlocked immediately. It has to be something that is actually earned via gameplay in Standard Mode. How you earn Cursed, no one knows. Mr. T Lexify speculated that it might be a reward for an Easter egg completion, which is what I'm leaning towards. And what I'm really worried about is this has been marketed as the hardcore mode for hardcore players. And you may be saying to yourself, well, what's wrong with that classification? That's essentially what classic mode is. While the player may have all these restrictions placed upon them, the zombies will not, which may create a severe balancing issue. Let's just take Black Ops 2 for instance. So in Black Ops 2, you still have the classic 4 perk system, you have less powerful weapons, only a single pack, classic points, there's no armor, etc. But the zombies are fine-tuned to accommodate that type of gameplay, to accommodate those restrictions. It's still a survival game where you're constantly outnumbered and overpowered, but you're still kept on a relatively equal ground to the zombies. Meanwhile, with a BO7 Classic mode, you will be having those BO2 restrictions, while fighting zombies that aren't there to cater to those kind of restrictions. It will kind of make a Classic mode pointless because it won't play like classic zombies. So yeah, I'm a little worried, but we'll have to wait and see what Treyarch are cooking up with that. But yeah, off rip, I love what BO7 is doing. Like I said, it's the exact same thing BO6 tried to do. It's acting as a direct sequel, and instead of scrapping what didn't work, it's keeping everything but fine-tuning it and polishing it, which creates this kind of dual hybrid between modern and classic that can hopefully appease everyone. But enough of the fundamental gameplay changes, let's talk about the new map, Ashes of the Damned, the Transit Remake. I have something to say. Whoever it was who had the idea of having zombies this year take place solely in the Dark Ether deserves a raise. This was a brilliant idea. For those of you who are unaware, basically with the introduction of Modern Warfare 2019 and Cold War, it created this weird requirement where zombies, multiplayer, Warzone, and campaign have to be canon to each other. It has to all take place under the same continuity in the same timeline. I know, it's a really stupid idea. It takes away from the realism of the campaign world because, well, zombies exist and Soap McTavish has canonically fought the undead. But more prevalent to this discussion, it limits the creative reaches of zombies itself because you can't have any crazy stakes or end-of-the-world scenarios going on because it cannot run interference with what's going on in campaign, multiplayer, or Warzone. So all the events has to be very isolated and under wraps, which reduces the scale and stakes of the story. Well, now we're playing in a whole nother dimension, completely isolated from the world of the campaign. So writers such as Craig Houston can do whatever they want to do. So yeah, they're bringing back scale, they're bringing back all of the crazy shenanigans of, Jason Blundell's run on the story. And I'm kind of a fan. If I'm being honest, I would have liked a more grounded sci-fi take on zombies that wasn't connected to campaign, it was just its own thing, but I'll take what I can get. This is the best way they can get around a whole stupid shared continuity idea. But yeah, in the gameplay we discussed how this game is going to feel more like zombies. Well, here we're going to talk about how it's going to look and sound a lot more like zombies. Just look at the general aesthetic of the map of Ashes of the Damned. Everything we've seen so far just looks so unapologetically zombies. And from what Codename Pizza has said in his livestream, apparently stuff as small as ammo crates has been remodeled to better fit the aesthetic. So hopefully no more boring facilities or underground lairs. Instead, we're gonna have actual unique environments, more akin to what we've had in the past. That being said, remaking Transit was an absolute crackpot idea and I am all here for it. Transit was a map that crumbled under its own ambition. Jimmy Zielinski had a lot of scale and he had this big vision for this awesome idea of a map, but unfortunately he had that idea in 2012, more appropriately 2011 really. So the hardware of Xbox 360 and PS3 just couldn't handle a map like that, so it had to be drastically downsized and obscured and annoying fog, which created a jumbled mess of ideas that hardly functioned. Well, now we're not in 2012 anymore, we are in 2025, and technology has progressed rapidly since. So now the scale and ambition of that map can be fully realized, and I am super excited for it. Locations like Diner and Farm are coming back, they look sick. We can actually control the fast travel vehicle this time around. Instead of having Ted drive us, we are driving old Tedzy, which is this cool armored truck with this Wonder-Off like sentry turn on it. It just looks so badass. There's gonna be Wonder Spheres, which makes traversal even more convenient. And the new Wonder Weapon looks sick. Also, Zombie Bear. What more do you want me to say? Zombie Bear. I mean, this is so cool. I just love it. I just love how it looks like we're getting an actual zombies game. BO6 definitely had a lot of areas that looked very zombies. I don't want to downplay like all the major improvements that BO6 did with the aesthetic. I mean, there were a lot of cool locations we visited in that game and a lot of neat environments we could explore. But once we got to Shadowed Vale, the aesthetic stuff just kind of got thrown out the window. We went back to boring facilities and lackluster locations. Don't even get me started on something like Liberty Falls. But with Ashes of the Damned, it looks like a very welcome step in the right direction. Well, I've been mostly positive throughout this entire video, but sadly that has to end because now we're going to talk about the story. We have very little information on what the story of BO7 is going to be about. I mean, what we saw in that intro cinematic didn't tell us anything. It was super flashy, it was super cool, but we really got no new information from that. But yeah, I'm gonna say it, I'm still not over Primus being resurrected. I hate this idea. It is a god-awful idea. It is one of the most creatively bankrupt decisions made in any piece of media I've ever seen ever. We said goodbye to these characters. They got a satisfying conclusion in Tog to Toten. I know a lot of people didn't like how they went out and they just didn't like how that ending was executed, especially how it was affected by a low budget. But narratively, I thought it worked. It worked really well, in fact. The constant theme of the zombie story was how characters just could not let go and had to keep the cycle of violence continuing. And that included us, the players, how we couldn't let go of these characters and we couldn't let go of this world. So the only way to naturally conclude that is by having us say goodbye. With Nikolai making the ultimate sacrifice and at least blessing these beloved characters with one last memory of huddling around a campfire, sharing their aspirations in life, and just overall bonding as one big family. And we, as the player, had to move Eddie and Samantha into a better world and say goodbye once and for all, closing the book on this chapter of zombies. Psych! Nope, they're back. They're just back. There's no explanation given yet on how they come back, but they're just here. They just showed up at the end of the Reckoning cutscene. Richtofen uttered some cheesy line, "Welcome to the party," and that's it. We just have to accept that these characters just came back. It's so stupid. This is obviously a response to how a lot of people just haven't been vibing with the Dark Ether story. But look, people haven't been vibing with the Dark Ether story because they miss the Primus characters. I mean, that's somewhat part of it, but that's not the main reason people aren't really receptive to the new Dark Ether story. People aren't receptive to it because it really hasn't been a good story. There's very few characters that we could connect with in Cold War. One of them was Weaver, one of them was Samantha, and then they killed off Samantha, so that just leaves Weaver. Dr. Peck was somewhat interesting and really entertaining as a semi-antagonist turned ally, but they just kind of put him to the side. They obviously had no idea what to do with him. Both Sam and Eddie were lackluster villains at the end of the day. They just really weren't that intriguing. And I swear to God, BO6 Zombies it felt like a story written by ChatGPT. I'm just being dead ass. I mean, it just had some of the most obnoxious fan service garbage shoved in there. What with canonizing chaos but not actually doing anything with any of those chaos elements. Having Eddie really just be Richtofen 2.0 without anything unique about this variant, with the exception of his family and his motives. And just tons and tons and tons of exposition without any actual, like, substantial interactions between the cast. Like, it just, this new story just hasn't done a good job of hooking people. So what do? Well, just bring back the old characters who are featured in a better written story. Surely that will fix everything. What mainly pisses me off about this is just how it disrespects Tom Kane's legacy. I know those of you who are well versed in the zombies community are probably sick of hearing this, but no, it deserves to be said again. Tom Kane was a very talented voice actor who starred in many things, some of his most popular roles being Yoda from Star Wars The Clone Wars, Ultron from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and relevant to this discussion, he was the voice of Takeo Masaki from 2009's World at War all the way to 2018's Black Ops 4. Tom Kane, along with the rest of the Ether cast, had this special video made with writer Craig Houston, where they said goodbye to these characters forever and reminisced on their time a part of this magical journey, and that was it. Everyone got closure. And tragically, sometime after that, Tom Kane had a stroke, which left him unable to voice act and thus ending his career prematurely. Obviously, that means Tom Kane physically cannot come back and reprise his role as Takeo Masaki. And even though it was horrible what happened to him and what happened to his career, and just the entire situation was just tragic, at the very, very least, he got to play Takeo from his entire story. Like, Takeo Masaki's entire journey, Tom Kane was the sole voice actor. It was just one big major reason why bringing back Primus was a bad idea, because not everyone would be able to come back, because one of the sole main voice actors was unable to reprise his role. So what did they do? Well, they just recasted him. Yeah, that's it. They just bring back Takeo and recast him. I'm not mad that they decided to recast Takeo. I mean, at the very least, it's better than using AI. But it's just, why even bring these characters back, especially if one of the main VAs couldn't come back to play him? It just seems so disrespectful and just like a spit in the face to Takeo's legacy and Tom Kane's time with the character. Same thing happens to Samantha Maxis, Samantha's VA, who has played this character and owned this character since 2009, was unceremoniously fired and recast throughout the middle of BO6 Zombies because she didn't want to sign some BS AI contract. That's how much Activision regards their employees and their voice talent. A voice actress who was that pivotal to that character and her story just unceremoniously replaced. Boom, just like that, and no one cared. And this has been just, it's made me so angry. I just hate how little respect the voice actors have been given. It's just, it really pisses me off. Obviously, this isn't Treyarch's fault. This is more so Activision's fault. I mean, what's not Activision's fault at this point? They're one of the main reasons they've been running this gaming franchise to the ground with their awful cosmetic practices and their forced SBMM. Obviously, we're kind of going off topic now, but yeah, fuck you, Activision, and here's to Tom Kane. Yeah, this has made me upset, and I thought it was worth bringing up in this video. So yeah, I am very, very against bringing back Primus. It's just disrespect all around. It's disrespectful to talk to Toten's ending. It's disrespectful to Tom Kane's history with the character. It's disrespectful to the player's intelligence. It's just disrespectful. It's just so, it's so creatively bankrupt. I just have no more words for it. And honestly, besides that, I'm really not getting my hopes too high with the story. Those of you who know me well know that I'm really a story guy. When it comes to video games, I need my games to have a good story because that's part of the motivation and incentive I have to play through a game if it has a engrossing narrative. And I'm just, I don't know how I feel about the story. I mean, they fumbled 3 endings in a row. We had Vanguard Zombies, which started out with a really promising premise and just fizzled out into a nothing burger. We had MWZ, which started out with a slightly interesting premise and fizzled out into a nothing burger. And we had BO6 Zombies, which started out with an amazing premise and fizzled out into a complete nothing burger. And so now we have BO7 Zombies with a somewhat intriguing premise And I'm sure it's probably gonna fizzle out into a nothing burger that just serves as an advertisement for the next game. I'm just tired of being hurt at this point. I'm tired of being burned by this series. I'm not gonna invest too much into the story because every time it just turns out to be nothing. It's actually funny because Cold War started out with a complete nothing burger of a premise. It was so uninteresting, no one cared about anything that was going on. And out of all the Dark Ether games that have come out, it is the only one that's had a really satisfying and awesome conclusion. So yeah, isn't that something? I don't want to end this video on a negative note, so I want to say this. BO7 Zombies, with the exception of the story, looks to be a vast improvement in every single regard. It's clear Treyarch are listening to the feedback of the fans and trying to create, again, the quintessential Zombies experience that creates a nice blend of modern mechanics and classic sensibilities. BO6 was a major improvement of Cold War, and I had decent fun with that game. So if BO7 is a major improvement of BO6, I will probably end up loving it, but we'll of course have to wait to see how it turns out. We're gonna get a slice of the action in the beta coming up, and I'm excited for that. I will be covering that. But anyways, what do you guys think of BO7 Zombies, and what do you think of what I've had to say about it? Be sure to comment below, like tell me what your thoughts are on it. Are you excited, or are you just done with the series at this point? Let me know. Subscribe if you want more videos like this, leave a like if you enjoyed, and yeah, have a great day and or night, fellow. Peace out.